Hey everyone, it's Jack from WhatCulture.com, and it's Friday, and you know what that means. That's right, it's not a day of rest, what happened on the Friday in the Bible? Richard?
You're asking the wrong person.
I think you made the fish, or just the humans generally, and you're watching the fast count. First, let's start off with all of this week's WWE news, and it's only a rumour, but there's a big one, so let's get to that one straight away. Now, there have been rumours that at the 2017 Royal Rumble in San Antonio, Texas, the hometown of Shawn Michaels, we could be seeing HBK v AJ Styles. What? Now, obviously, we're all very, very excited here at WhatCulture.com. Shawn Michaels, undisputably one of the greatest of all time. AJ Styles could also be considered one of the greatest of all time, certainly one of the greatest of the current era by a fair margin. It does seem a little unlikely because obviously Michaels has honoured his retirement ever since his last match. He's never returned to the ring, but if there was ever an occasion for him to do so, it would be in his hometown at a big pay-per-view against an opponent the calibre of AJ Styles. And just to make things even a little bit more tantalising, AJ has shared on his Facebook a fan-made picture or a poster of the pair of them. My gut instinct says this can't happen. It's like an angel coming down. It's amazing, but oh, if it does, can you imagine? It'd be great. Now let's look at a more up-and-coming pay-per-view, Hell in a Cell, which of course happens not this Sunday, but the Sunday after. And the big news here is that the main event could well be Sasha Banks v Charlotte, which would obviously be an amazing milestone, not only in women's wrestling, but just in wrestling in general. Two women headlining a major WWE pay-per-view. But then again, everyone seems to have jumped on this story and is taking it for granted because of Mick Foley, who on his Facebook page said, "Can't wait for Sasha Banks and Charlotte to have a main event match at Hell in a Cell." Now, those of you familiar with WWE throughout its history really will know that they have a history of billing multiple matches on the same pay-per-view as main events, whereas our definition of the main event may be the last match on the card. WWE often have played a bit fast and loose with that term, so we're not really sure how true that is at this point. Goldberg returned, hooray, stepped into a WWE ring for the first time in 12 years, scooping children out of crowd. It felt like explosions were going off. That's my notes at the minute for Goldberg. I think it may have rained honey inside the arena. Goldberg returned on Monday Night Raw, and it was a very exciting time. I'm still relatively skeptical about the match itself. I don't think Goldberg and Lesnar are a good match, as proven at WrestleMania 20. Regardless of motivation, I just don't think their styles mesh well together. I think they're a bit too similar. They both squash other guys. They don't get involved in long, drawn-out battles. Well, Lesnar has in his career, but his forte is obviously destroying people, as is Goldberg's. On the other hand, it was an incredibly exciting segment on Raw. Goldberg was more babyface than he's arguably ever been in his career. He was speaking more from the heart, I guess, than he has done before. He never really spoke that much in the earlier days. And yeah, and capped things off with a perfect line. "Lesnar, you're not just next, you're last." And I personally popped for that, and I'm sure a lot of you did as well. I just really want Goldberg to win now. He's not going to. Now it's time to take a look at all the news from elsewhere in the wacky world of pro wrestling. I know I normally get a bit more excited, but I'll be honest with you, right? I always pride myself on my honesty here on Fast Count. It's been a bit of a WWE-centric week. Matt Hardy hasn't done anything weird. He hasn't stolen a cow from the market or jumped into a ravine of purple jelly babies or swam through a... First off, let's look at TNA Impact Wrestling. Billy Corgan Smashing Pumpkins Wrestling Entertainment, Sports Entertainment Weekly. Cody Rhodes challenged Eddie Edwards for the TNA Heavyweight Championship, and unfortunately for fans of Cody Rhodes like myself, god damn what a pretty man he is. Eddie Edwards won with a roll-up. I agree with the decision. I don't think you could move the belt 2 times in such quick succession without really cheapening it, but on the same time, really wanted Cody to win. He's just such a handsome man. Are you alright, Richard? You also sad that Cody lost? Me too. And Bobby Lashley beat Moose to be the new #1 contender, which I disagree with because, like, Moose, man. And Lashley's been in the main event scene forever. This is really a cheap kind of point because it's technically WWE news, but I've shimmied it over into the other category. It involves NXT and Austin Aries' mystery tag team partner. And as many of us, most of us suspected, it is former Ring of Honor champion, former Mr. Ring of Honor, Roderick Strong. And they won their first round match in the Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic. Roddy received a decent reception. There were Roddy chants, although it was a little quiet as well. Certainly not the raucous reception we've seen for people such as James Storm or Bobby Roode or Samoa Joe when they debuted. But onwards and upwards from here, they could be a fantastic, hilarious heel tag team. And now we go over to Lucha Underground, where Prince Puma and Mil Muertes faced off in a rematch of the title match of the first Ultima Lucha, the main event, the big match of the first season of Lucha Underground. But this time, Prince Puma won. He avenged his loss, kind of, although there was no title on the line this time. You'd probably expect a rubber match at some point down the line. And now, call up Domino's, ring the Chinese, pop round the Indian, get some peri chicken, Richard, you f***ing dick, because it's time for all of this week's takeaways. Now, our first takeaway, and remember, I want to hear what you think about this in the comment section below. Do you think Sasha Banks and Charlotte should be the first women to headline a WWE pay-per-view? Now, obviously, the pair have worked incredibly hard to get this far. Their feud is going well. It will be incredibly landmark, well-deserved. But basically, do you think that this feud is the one worthy of headlining a pay-per-view for the first time? I'm a bit hesitant because, yes, it's been a good feud, but if it does main event the show and we take Foley's story to be accurate and correct, I don't think this has been the best women's feud I've even seen in the past year or so. I think that has to go to Bayley v Sasha Banks, and I think they should save the first such occasion for when Bayley gets more heavily involved and when her and Sasha have their big rematch, or maybe even when Asuka gets called up. Not to take anything away from Charlotte, but I just don't think this is the one yet. But what do you think? Which one do you think would be the most deserving pairing for a women's main event pay-per-view match? Or do you think this is the one? Do you think this is the correct decision by WWE, if that's the decision at all? A lot of uncertainties here. Things are starting to take shape in the world of New Japan Pro Wrestling with regards to their huge show in January 2017, in which Kenny Omega will take on Kazuchika Okada for the IWGP Heavyweight Championship. But all eyes for the moment are on their next pay-per-view early in November. Power Struggle is the next big show over in New Japan, and it could realistically be named Los Ingobernables de Japón Fest, because all four members of the stable are competing in big matches on the card. First of all, we have the junior heavyweight champion Bushi defending his title in a rematch against Kushida, Evil taking on Shibata for Shibata's Never Openweight Championship, Sonata taking on the legendary Tanahashi in a special sort of grudge match, and Tetsuya Naito defending his Intercontinental Championship against none other than my boy, and he should be your boy as well, Jay Lethal from Ring of Honor and from WCPW, of course. But have New Japan made the right decision in keeping Omega and Okada off the card? Personally, I'm inclined to say they have. It kind of keeps things moving on for other members of the roster. Those two can continue to build their feud in press conferences and the like, and hopefully they can put on a fantastic show both in November and, you know, at Wrestle Kingdom 11 when it rolls around in January. Really sorry for people who don't know a thing about New Japan. I've just wasted a couple of minutes of your time there, but thanks for listening, and do check it out. It's really, really good. And finally, and long-time viewers of the Fast Count will know that I'm a massive fan of Lucha Underground. However, it's time to ask the question, which Richard, the editor, asked me earlier this week. Do you think Season 3 has got off to a slower start than Seasons 1 and 2? Season 1 and 2 received rave reviews, of course. Season 3 hasn't quite picked up the traction that its predecessors did. Matanza's title reign has been a bit one-sided apart from his match with Pentagon. The Wheel of Doom thing that Dario's doing leads to really sort of quick squash matches. It was really sad this week to see Killshot defeated in such quick fashion. And at the top of the card, we seem to be moving towards another Rey Mysterio v Chavo Guerrero feud in 2016. However, on the other hand, things in Lucha Underground tend to happen for a reason, and they do enjoy a bit of a slow build, and then suddenly something shocking and amazing happens. So hopefully, things will carry on as they did in Seasons 1 and 2, and things will ignite going forwards. So that's all for this week on the Fast Count. Join us next week for another hearty ass roundup of all the week's wrestling news. What the f*** is wrong with me? I've been Jack from WhatCulture.com. Thank you very much for watching. You can follow me on Twitter at Jack_the Jobber, and I'll see you soon.